Welcome to Keynotes. On today's episode, journalist and author Benyamin Cohen shares his experiences on how visiting churches helped him restore his faith as an Orthodox Jew. We now join Benyamin Cohen in his discussion, How the Church Made Me a Better Jew.
So I'm going to explain why I went on this journey. I'll tell you some of the things that happened to me during the journey, and then I'm also going to tell you some things that I learned, some things that I think we all can learn from each other's faith. So like I said, I grew up here in Atlanta, Georgia, the son of an Orthodox rabbi, one of 8 kids, and I was kind of, coming right off the conveyor belt and thrown into the deep end of the Orthodox Jewish pool. And so growing up, I was told, do this, don't do that, keep kosher, keep the Sabbath, a whole set of laws that that kind of put a structure around everything I did. And for me, it wasn't really a way to enjoy my religion because it was kind of, in a certain sense, forced down my throat. I think all people of serious faith who try to, get their children involved in serious faith, you kind of have that balance of how much do I, quote unquote, force upon them, and at the same time, how much do I want them to choose it on their own. So for me, it was a very tough road growing up in that environment, always being told what to do as far as my Judaism was concerned. To compound matters, my dad actually built a 1,000-square-foot synagogue onto the side of our house. So we had the dining room, and then we had the synagogue. And so I literally grew up inside a synagogue. So for me, it was like, waking up on Saturday morning, and you didn't have a choice. If you're eating breakfast, you can wave to everyone in the synagogue. So, little did my dad know when he built this, it actually had a good, actually ended up being good for me in the sense that one of the other things I couldn't have as a religious rabbi's son, I was not allowed to have a girlfriend growing up. I wasn't allowed to talk to girls. I wasn't allowed to have a girlfriend. And so being the rebellious son that I am, I did have a girlfriend. And this was before the days of the internet and instant messaging and texting and emailing. And so we really couldn't talk during the day. So what I would do is I would sneak out of the house in the middle of the night, kind of like Romeo and Juliet. I'd ride my bike over to her house and throw a pebble at her window, and she'd come out and we would talk. And so when my dad built the synagogue, my dad's bedroom was over here and the synagogue was over here. So the synagogue provided a great escape route in the middle of the night. He couldn't hear a thing. When I went out the back door of the synagogue, I was gone. He didn't even know it. So, but I doubt that was his intentions. But even when I went to college and I left my father's house, I still had even though I was no longer under his spiritual roof, so to speak, I still wasn't able to choose Judaism as my own. I was still doing everything because it was like ingrained in me, like I was a robot, must keep kosher, So it wasn't a real refreshing way to, I wanted to get jazzed about my Judaism, and I certainly wasn't. I was just going through the motions. I noticed all my friends were getting married. This is probably in the early 20s, and they got married and they started having children, and friends like me, we all grew up, Orthodox Jews, doing all these what we thought were crazy laws and crazy things we had to do, and their life seemed to be moving in the right direction. Once they got married and started having a family, it seemed like they were on the right path. So I became obsessed with finding a wife, and for a period of time, there's only 5 Orthodox Jewish single girls in Atlanta, and after I dated all 5 of them, my friends started setting me up with Orthodox Jewish girls in Manhattan, and I would talk to a girl for a month. I'd fly up there, and it wouldn't work out. It was like a very inefficient way to date because it would take a month just to go on a first date. So then I told them, I said, from now on, just set me up with a lot of girls. I'll go on a lot of first dates. So throughout most of my 20s, I'd fly up my typical Sunday because I don't travel on Saturday on the Sabbath. So I would leave Sunday morning. I fly up to New York, and I had 5 dates set up: coffee, lunch, coffee, dinner. And then I'd fly back on the last Delta flight back to Atlanta. I was like all jittery from the caffeine, But there was no way, I went out with over 100 young ladies that way, and I did not find my wife. But while I was doing that, my future wife was actually on her own spiritual journey. My future wife grew up in Snellville, Georgia. She's now my current wife, so my future wife, just so we're clear. She grew up in Snellville, Georgia, the daughter of a Methodist minister. And when she was in elementary school, her father had a crisis of faith and left the church. Grew a ponytail, bought a red sports car convertible, totally went off in that direction. And so his daughter, my future wife, started questioning faith herself. Well, if my dad doesn't believe in this, why should I believe in it? And so luckily for me, her dad had the Jewish Book of Why on his bookshelf. And so she picked it up and started reading it, and she got interested in Judaism throughout her teen years and through her college years. And I actually met her when she was almost finished converting at synagogue on a Saturday morning. So, little did I know she was right in my own backyard after all that traveling. So I did get married, and it was great being married to a convert to Judaism because she chose this religion. And so I get to live with someone who every day it's something new. It's like this is her first Passover, this is her first Hanukkah, this is her first Sabbath, and I get to experience it through her eyes, which is great, but it didn't solve my spiritual apathy. I was still feeling like there was something missing. I was vicariously living through her, but it wasn't my own. I wanted to be able to choose it on my own. And while I was thinking about this, I started looking around, and I noticed, here in the Bible Belt, there are churches, as we all know, there are churches on every street corner. There's probably more churches than Starbucks. Sometimes you go into a church, and you go in the bathroom, and there's like another church. It's like a breakaway church in there, right? And they're packed every Sunday. Growing up here, I would drive around. I lived across the street from a church. My bedroom window, growing up in my dad's house, looked out at a Methodist church across the street from my house. And I would see every Sunday morning, packed parking lot, and kids would come out, and they're all happy. I wasn't happy going to synagogue. I was like, go to synagogue. And synagogues across America are not packed every week. The high holidays, certainly they're packed for a bar mitzvah or for other occasions. But on a regular basis, a lot of synagogues in America are not packed. And so I was wondering, what are they doing inside church that is so much, fun, that it's bringing people back every week? And what can I learn? Not because I wanted to go and convert to Christianity, but I wanted to learn, what could I learn from Christians to enhance my own religion? Like I said, to get myself jazzed about Judaism. And so that was that was my mission, to see what I could do to learn from Christians. And so I told my wife, still dripping wet from the conversion waters, I said, listen, I want to take a year and go to church every week. And she looked at me and she said, it's not as fun as you think it is. But hey, if you want to go, and here's what she said, like all converts, converts are usually much more strict about their religion than the people who were born into it. So she said, fine, if you want to go, you have to ask a rabbi and get permission. And if he says you can go, then you can go. So I asked the rabbi, and surprisingly, he said, sure, you can go. But he gave me two conditions. Condition number one was that I had to wear my skull cap so that people knew I was Jewish. Not that a 5'2" nerdy Jewish I look Jewish, so I don't know. And the second condition was, since I'm a journalist, he said I have to wear my press pass, my little press badge, so that people know that I'm there as an observer and not there to actually participate in prayer. Those were his two conditions, which I kept to most of the time. And so and then he said one more thing, which was very interesting. He said, you're right, there is a lot of things we can learn from church. Member retention, how to get new members, people look like they're enjoying themselves more. We can learn a lot from them. So why don't you go, besides your own personal journey, find out and come back and teach us what you learned. So with the weight of the entire Jewish people on my shoulders, I set off on a year-long journey, 52 churches, every Sunday to go to a different church in the Bible Belt.